During our big family Easter celebration, I helped cook, set up the egg hunt in the garden, and even paid for the catering service. Just before dinner, my father raised his voice and said, "You're just a guest in this family now. Don't overstep." My stepmother nodded, my brother looked away. I didn't cry. I simply walked inside, grabbed my bag, and disconnected everything they had taken for granted. My name is Evan. I'm 28 years old. And I guess the best way to begin this is by saying, I used to think that family loyalty meant something. That if you showed up, gave your time, your money, your care, people would notice. That it would matter. But this past Easter proved I was wrong. I'm the eldest by a lot. My brother Jeremy is 22. My dad remarried when I was 16, not long after my mother passed away. That part still hurts, even just writing it. Her death somehow shattered everything, and while I did everything I could to hold the pieces together, Dad moved on at a chilling speed. Within a year, he was already dating this woman named Karen. Yes, with a C. Because of course. And by the time I graduated from high school, she was already moving into the house we had shared with Mom. It never really felt like a family again after that. More like a blended arrangement that leaned heavily in favor of Karen and Jeremy. At first, I tried. I really did. I offered to help Jeremy with his homework, brought groceries home, even got a part-time job to contribute while I was in college. Karen always acted polite, but it was that kind of forced politeness, like the way someone smiles at a cashier but doesn't make eye contact. And Dad, he just faded. He started missing my recitals, ignoring our movie nights, canceling the father-son trips we used to take every spring. He said he was busy, but he wasn't. He had just stopped trying. I moved out at 20 when I finally got tired of feeling like a third wheel in my own home. But even then, I didn't cut ties. I kept showing up for birthdays. Kept sending gifts. Kept calling every Sunday like clockwork. It was like I kept hoping, maybe next time they'll see me. Maybe next time will be different. It wasn't. This year, Karen decided to host a big family Easter gathering. She posted about it in our group chat like it was going to be this big backyard egg hunt, catered meal, family traditions. I rolled my eyes, but agreed to go. Mostly because Jeremy had asked me directly, and I thought, okay, why not? I had the day off, and maybe this was a chance to reconnect. But somehow, even when I should know better, Evan still walks into that house hoping things will feel like home again. The day started off fine. Karen was assigning tasks like she was running a restaurant. Evan, you're in charge of the backyard. Set up the egg hunt stations. Hello, make sure the tables are clean. The kids need juice boxes in the fridge. And don't forget the plastic cutlery. No, please. No, thank you. Just orders. I didn't argue. I smiled, nodded, and got to work. I always do. It's like muscle memory now. I cleaned the backyard, set up the plastic eggs, laid out the tablecloths, even fixed a few wobbly chairs. I ran a last-minute errand to the store when the caterers called and said they had forgotten the vegetarian dish, which I had paid for out of my own pocket, by the way. Never got reimbursed for that. Around 3 p.m., people started to arrive, cousins, in-laws, mostly Karen's side of the family. I was the only one sweating in a button-up shirt, with grass stains on my knees. Somehow, everyone else had shown up looking fresh, clean, and clueless. Karen's sister greeted me like I was the hired help. "Oh, you must be the one setting everything up. You're doing such a great job." She said it with that fake cheerful tone that made me want to laugh and scream at the same time. Even my own uncle didn't recognize me at first. Jeremy gave me a side hug and muttered, "Glad you came, man," before disappearing with his girlfriend. As the afternoon wore on, I noticed something: no one had saved me a seat at any of the tables. I kept telling myself it was an oversight. That maybe someone would notice and fix it. But the more people arrived, the more chairs were taken, until I was left standing with a plastic cup of warm lemonade in my hand and a forced smile on my face. Karen finally announced that dinner was ready. People began lining up near the buffet, holding paper plates, laughing and joking. I stayed close to the folding table where I had placed the forks. That's when it happened. I was reaching out to straighten a napkin holder when I heard my father's voice, sharp, sudden, and loud enough for people nearby to stop talking. "Evan," he said, without looking at me. "You're just a guest in this family now. Don't overstep." It was like someone punched me out of nowhere. At first, I didn't even process it. I just blinked, confused, thinking maybe I had misheard. But then Karen, standing beside him with her arms crossed, nodded. "It's not your place to be directing things here," she added, with that smug little smile, like she had been waiting years to finally say that out loud. I looked at Jeremy, my brother, my little brother who used to follow me like a shadow when we were kids. He met my eyes, then looked away. Not a word. Not one single word. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just stood there, holding that same stupid plastic cup, realizing I was the only one in that backyard who felt out of place in a family I used to belong to. I walked inside without saying a word, found my bag near the front door where I had dropped it earlier that morning, and then I started unplugging things. The Wi-Fi router, gone. I bought it last year when theirs broke and no one bothered replacing it. The backyard speakers, mine. I had loaned them for Jeremy's graduation and never got them back. Gone. That extra generator that was keeping the catering food warm. Surprise, that was mine too. I bought it during a snowstorm last winter and left it with Dad just in case. I unplugged it and carried it to my car like it weighed nothing. It felt like something inside me had just shut off, like all the years of bending over backwards, staying silent, swallowing pain, just evaporated. And I wasn't done yet. I walked to my car, slow and steady, as if I weren't furious inside. As if I hadn't just been told out loud, in front of a backyard full of people, that I no longer belonged to my own family. But I wasn't going to cry. Not for them. Not anymore. As I opened the trunk and started loading up the gear, I noticed someone watching me from the kitchen window. Jeremy. He didn't come out. He didn't say anything. Just watched. I almost laughed. Maybe he was shocked. Maybe he expected me to sneak away quietly like I always did. Not this time. After loading everything, I got into the car and sat there with the engine running. I looked at my phone and opened a small folder I kept in my notes app. It was titled Shared Expenses, and it listed a lot of things my family had conveniently forgotten that I had been covering over the years. Like the car insurance policy still under my name. Dad had wrecked his car a few years ago and I stepped in to co-sign for the new one, getting him a good rate through my provider. He never transferred it. I had been paying the monthly premiums in silence, out of guilt, I guess, or habit. Or the utilities. The house was still under Mom's name when she passed, and I was never officially removed as a secondary account holder. When they hit a rough patch financially last year, Karen had taken a break from work to focus on her well-being, whatever that meant. I agreed to cover the electric bill for a few months. Those months turned into a year. I still had all the account logins. I still had access. I still had control. And then there was the big one. Not only was I paying for the Wi-Fi and their Amazon Prime, I was also the guarantor for their new HVAC system. They'd had issues with their old unit during the worst heat wave in decades, and when the contractor required a co-signer, guess who got the call? Me. I didn't even hesitate. I just showed up and signed. I paid the first installment out of pocket to get the process rolling. Guess what else? I had the contract. So I opened the billing portal, unlinked my card, clicked Transfer Ownership. When it wouldn't let me, because they hadn't made enough consistent payments, I clicked Cancel Auto Pay instead. Then I logged into the electric company, paused the payment, and texted customer service with a simple line. I no longer reside at this address and would like to be removed as a payer. They replied within minutes, saying they would contact the primary account holder to confirm. I smiled. Then I opened the insurance app, looked up the car policy, removed my payment method, and submitted a cancellation notice with an end-of-month date. Finally, I took screenshots of every cancellation, removal, and email confirmation, and sent them to my father. Subject line: since I'm just a guest, here's what I'll no longer be providing. I hit send. Then I left. I was about 5 minutes away when the calls started, first Jeremy, then Karen, then Dad. None of them left voicemails. I didn't answer. Instead, I drove to my apartment, parked, and made myself a sandwich, the kind I always used to eat as a kid. Peanut butter and jelly with the crusts cut off. I needed something familiar. Something to ground me. It was about an hour later when Jeremy finally texted. "Dude, what's going on?" I stared at it for a while before replying. I typed, "Just a guest, remember?" No response. The next morning, I woke up to 4 missed calls from Karen, 2 emails from Dad, 1 angry, 1 worried, and a voicemail from my aunt saying she had heard things got tense and maybe I was overreacting. Overreacting? I had helped organize an entire family gathering, paid for out of my own pocket, and got told, publicly, that I didn't belong. But sure, I was the problem. They underestimated me again. That afternoon, the electricity at their house got cut off. I know because Jeremy texted, "Power's out." "Did you do something?" I waited 5 minutes, then replied. "You'd have to ask the family. I'm just the guest." 2 hours later, my father left me a voicemail. His voice was tight, controlled, but there was a tiny crack in it, like he couldn't believe this was actually happening. "Evan," he said. "We need to talk. I think things got out of hand." Karen. Karen shouldn't have said that. I didn't mean it the way it sounded. "You know I appreciate everything you've done. Let's talk, please." I didn't respond. I needed him to feel it, to really feel it. Because this wasn't just about Easter. It wasn't about a folding chair or some plastic eggs. It was about every ignored effort, every tossed-aside holiday, every time I called and no one picked up. It was about being made to feel like a burden in the same house where I used to hear bedtime stories and make pancakes on Sunday mornings. It was about the little boy who watched his father move on too fast, who kept hoping year after year that maybe, just maybe, he'd be seen again. And now he finally was. And I still wasn't done. I waited a full 24 hours before even considering calling him back, not because I was playing games, but because I needed that time. To think. To breathe. To not react emotionally, like I always had in the past. I wanted to go into this with a clear head, not hoping he'd suddenly apologize or explain everything, but just to listen. Really listen. To what he had to say when the control had finally slipped from his hands. So the next night, around 6 p.m., I called. He picked up on the first ring. "Evan," he exhaled, like my name was a lifeline. "Thank you. Thank you for calling. Look, I don't know what Karen said or what you think I said." I didn't let him finish. My voice was calm. Steady. "Don't start there. You know exactly what you said. Don't pretend it didn't happen." There was silence on the other end. I could hear him breathing, but he didn't interrupt. "Because I want to be very clear about something," I continued. "You said I was a guest, out loud, in front of your wife, your son, and everyone in that backyard. You said I didn't belong. After I spent my entire Sunday and half my paycheck making sure your family gathering went smoothly. Evan, it wasn't about. It was exactly about that," I said. "You made your choice. And I made mine." He sighed. And suddenly, his voice took on that familiar frustrated edge, the one I used to hear in arguments when I was a teenager. The one he used when he wanted to sound like the adult in the room. "I think you're overreacting. You went too far, cutting the power, taking the speakers. You're punishing the whole family for one sentence." I almost laughed. One sentence. One. "That sentence wasn't a slip," I said. "It's how you've treated me for years. This time, it just came out." He went quiet again. Look, he finally said, softer this time. I get it. Things haven't been perfect. But you've always been the strong one, you always handled things better than Jeremy. That's why I leaned on you. That's why I thought you could take it. There it was, the confession. The unspoken truth behind a decade of unbalanced affection. You thought I could take it, so you gave it to me? I asked. You let her treat me like a servant. You let Jeremy coast while I picked up the pieces. You never, not once, asked how I was doing. And when I finally stopped doing everything, suddenly I'm being dramatic. That's not what I'm saying. It's exactly what you're saying. I could feel something inside me settle. Solid. Final. Not anger. Not bitterness. Just closure. The kind that doesn't scream. It just walks away. Here's the thing, I said. I'm not angry. I'm done. Evan, no. I'm done trying to prove I belong to people who only notice me when I'm useful. You want the power back on. Pay your own bill. You want the car insurance covered. Transfer the policy. The HVAC system. That debt's yours now. I'm not carrying it anymore. I let the silence sink in again. You made me the guest, Dad. So I'm leaving. I hung up before he could respond. I didn't block him. I didn't send a dramatic follow-up email. I just disappeared from the role they had shoved me into. The days that followed were quiet. Tense, but quiet. No more calls. No more texts. I heard from my cousin, the one who still talked to me, that there had been a total meltdown after Easter. Karen blamed Jeremy for not handling things. Jeremy blamed Karen for making it worse. Dad apparently tried to smooth things over, but when the air conditioning went out midweek during an unexpected heatwave. Yeah. That broke whatever calm was left. They had to pay out of pocket for an emergency technician visit. Turns out, when you remove the only responsible person from the equation, things fall apart. I focused on my own life. Took a few days off work. Slept in. Ate well. Cleaned my apartment. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel the weight of being the good son, the fixer, the one holding the family together with duct tape and denial. Then, 1 week later, Jeremy showed up at my apartment. I heard the knock and looked through the peephole before opening the door. He looked sheepish. Sweaty. Like he had been pacing the hallway too long. Hey, he said. I raised an eyebrow. You could have texted. I figured you wouldn't reply. I didn't say anything. I just waited. I didn't know, he said after a second. About all the payments. The catering. The insurance. I didn't realize how much you were doing. I leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. You didn't want to know. He nodded. Yeah. I didn't. I just got used to it. You always handled everything. I guess I thought you liked it. Seemed like I liked it. He gave a weak smile, then looked down. Not really. There was a long pause. I could tell he wasn't there to argue. That was new. I talked to Dad, he said. He's Dad. Blaming Karen, but also trying to make you feel guilty for leaving. I told him he's lucky you stayed as long as you did. That almost made me smile. Then he added, I want to fix things. With you. Not for them, just us. I studied his face. For once, there was no entitlement there. No smug little brother smile. Just honesty. You want to fix it? I asked. Then start by not needing me to do all the work. He nodded again. Fair. I opened the door a little wider and stepped aside. Want some water? He exhaled, like he had been holding his breath the whole time. Yeah. That'd be great. As we sat down in my kitchen, something shifted. Not completely healed. Not forgiven. But cracked just enough for air to move again. My father would keep calling. I was sure Karen might even send an email, guilt-filled, about rebuilding trust. But I wasn't playing anymore. This time, the guest was gone for good. Jeremy and I talked for nearly 2 hours that night. Not just about the Easter disaster, but about everything. The years of imbalance. The quiet resentments. The way I always felt like the backup plan. The filler son. The one who made things work while Dad and Karen treated Jeremy like some rare collectible. To his credit, Jeremy didn't deflect. He didn't make excuses. He listened. I think I was just lazy, he said at one point. It was easier to let you carry everything. And I guess I figured if no one asked you to stop, then it must have been okay. That's the problem, I said quietly. No one ever asked if it was okay. They just assumed. He nodded slowly. I'm sorry, man. And, oddly, I believed him. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I was talking to my brother. Not Dad and Karen's golden boy. Not the guy who used to borrow money and never pay it back. But the kid who used to hide candy in my room during finals week. Who begged me to stay up late and play Mario Kart when we were little. The version of him that existed before all the favoritism twisted everything. I didn't say, it's okay. Because it wasn't. But I did say, thanks. And that was enough, for now. The following weeks were uneventful in the best possible way. I went to work, came home, watched movies I hadn't seen in years. I cooked dinner for myself instead of grabbing takeout while rushing between obligations. My apartment became a refuge instead of just a layover between disasters. It was the most peace I had felt since college. Dad kept trying. At first, it was subtle, a forwarded meme, a shared calendar invite for a family brunch, which I quickly declined. Then came the apology messages, each one more desperate than the last. We were all stressed that day. You know I didn't mean it that way. You've always been part of this family. Evan, please don't do this. You're tearing us apart. That one actually made me laugh. I wasn't tearing anyone apart. I just wasn't the glue anymore. He didn't reply. Then came the final straw. 3 weeks after Easter, Dad sent me a long email, not to apologize, not to take responsibility, but to guilt me. Karen is heartbroken. Jeremy's been upset. You made your point. But maybe it's time to stop punishing everyone. Punishing. That word flipped a switch inside me. Because let's be clear, I hadn't done this to be vindictive. I didn't pull the plug to hurt anyone. I did it because it was the only way to stop being hurt. The only way to break the cycle. To remind them I wasn't a silent, reliable footnote in their lives. But apparently, standing up for myself counted as punishment. So I replied. You want to talk about punishment? Let's talk. For 10 years, I helped with your bills, your car, your home. I paid for groceries when you were short. I paid Jeremy's college application fees. I loaned Karen money for that wellness retreat she never paid back. I was your backup wallet. Your backup planner. Your backup emotional support system. I planned birthdays, picked up decorations, called every Sunday for years. You forgot my birthday twice. Last Christmas, you gave me a $20 gift card while Jeremy got a new laptop. You said I already had a good setup. And on Easter, after I planned and paid and prepped and cleaned, you stood in front of the entire family and said I was just a guest. You don't get to call my boundaries punishment. You don't get to hurt me for years and then act surprised when I finally stop letting you. You made your choices. I'm making mine. I ended it with a single line. I wish you the best, but I'm done. And I was. I didn't wait for a reply. I archived the thread, blocked his number, for my own peace, and walked away completely. Now here's where it gets interesting. 2 months later, I got a call from Jeremy. Dad moved out, he said, voice quiet. Karen kicked him out last week. What? I asked. She found out he was behind on the HVAC payments. He kept telling her they were covered, but after you cancelled everything, he just ignored it. Figured you'd cave eventually. I closed my eyes. Of course he did. So they started getting final notices. Then the repair guy came back and said a lien was going to be placed if they didn't pay. Karen lost it. She blamed him for everything. Said you should never have been responsible for any of it. I raised an eyebrow. Now she says that. Jeremy sighed. Look, I'm not defending her. She's still Karen. But I guess without you as the buffer, they imploded. It was never going to last. He was quiet for a second. He's been staying at Uncle Rob's. Says he's thinking about selling the house. Wow, I murmured. All that, from one sentence in the backyard. Jeremy gave a dry laugh. Yeah. Turns out you weren't just a guest after all. We kept in touch after that, slowly, casually. He came by a few more times. We had lunch. He actually started asking about my life, for once. And on my birthday, for the first time in years, he showed up with a homemade cake, the kind Mom used to make. Chocolate with raspberry filling. I figured I owed you one, he said. For all the ones you covered. I won't pretend everything healed overnight. It didn't. Some wounds don't close neatly. They just stop bleeding. But I had peace. And that was something. As for my father, he never responded to my final email. But 3 months later, I got a letter in the mail. No return address. Evan. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't even know if I deserve it. But I read your email 100 times. You were right about everything. I got used to you fixing everything. And when you stopped, I didn't know how to function without you. That was my failure, not yours. I'm sorry. I don't know if we'll ever talk again. But I hope that someday, you'll be able to remember the good parts of us. Because I do. I stared at it for a long time. Then I folded it, placed it in a drawer, and walked away. Not angry. Not vindicated. Just free. Because the truth is, sometimes the most powerful revenge isn't loud. It's not a dramatic confrontation. It's not public humiliation. Sometimes, it's the silence. It's walking away. It's saying, I no longer give you the power to keep hurting me. And meaning it.